Be starting off with chapter 2, text 26 through 36. First, we'll be reciting the introduction prayers on page 1 of the Bhagavad-gita. Om Ganya Timrandasya Ganajana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Yena Tashmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Shapyatam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upakaramayam Dadanti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakans Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchkana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so we'll start off by reading the and we'll follow it with the translation. If you'd like to respond in unison, please do. Atachainam nicha jatam nityam va manyase mritam tatapi tvam mahabaho nainam sochitam arhasi. If, however, you think that the soul is perpetually born and always dies, still you have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. Text 27. Jatasya hi dhruvo mitur dhruvam janmamritasya cha tasmat aparhare rite natvam shochitum arhasi. 28. Avyaktadini bhutani. Oh, translation. Translation for 27. For one who has taken his birth, death is certain, and for one who is dead, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Now, text 28. Avyaktadini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata avyakta nidhyanya eva tatra ka paridevana. Translation. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when they are annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? Text 29. Ascharyavat pashyati kaschid inam ascharyavat vadati tataiva chanyaha Ascharyavatchainam anya shanoti strutvapyenam veda nachaiva kaschit. Translation. Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. Text 30. Dehi nityam avajyoyam dehe sarvasya bharata tasmat sarvani bhutani natvam shochitum arhasi. O descendant of Bharat, he who dwells in the body is eternal and can never be slain. Therefore, you need not grieve for any creature. Text 31. Swadharmam api chavekshya navi kampitum arhasi dharmya diyudyachtrayo yat chatrashibhya navidyate. Considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there's no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles, and so there is no need for hesitation. 32. Yadrichaya Sukhina Chatriya Parta Labante Yudam Idrisham. O Partha, happy are the Kshatriyas to whom such fighting opportunities come unsought, opening for them the doors of the heavenly planets. 33. Atha chet twamimam dharmyam sangramam na karishyasi tata swadharmam kitirm cha hitva papam avapsyasi. If, however, you do not fight this religious war, then you will certainly incur sins for neglecting your duties and thus lose your reputation as a fighter. 34. Akirtim chapi bhutani kata yishyanti te vyayam sambhavi tasya chakrirtir maranad atirichite. Translation. People will always speak of your infamy, and for one who has been dishonored, dishonor is worse than death. 35. Vayadranad uparatam mamsyante twam maharataha yesham cha twam bahumato bhutva yasyasi lagavam. The great generals who have highly esteemed your name and fame will think that you have left the battlefield out of fear only, and thus they will consider you a coward. Text 36, final text. Avyachyavadamscha bahum vadishyanti tavahitaha nindantastava samartyam tato dukartaram nukim. Your enemies will describe you in many unkind words and scorn your ability. What could be more painful for you? Okay, so we'll go back to chapter 2, text 26. Or is it? No, sorry, 27. We have to read one more then. We'll go to chapter 2, text 37 and finish it off that way. Hato va prapshyasi swargam jitva va bokshyase mahim tasmad utishta konteya yudhaya krita nishchayaha. O son of Kunti, either you will be killed on the battlefield and attain the heavenly planets, or you will conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Therefore, get up and fight with determination. Okay, now back to text 27. For one who has taken his birth, death is certain, and for one who is dead, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Purport and translations by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada. One who has to take birth according to one's activities of life, and after finishing one term of activities, one has to take birth for the next. In this way, the cycle of birth and death is revolving, one after another without liberation. This cycle of birth and death does not, however, support unnecessary murder, slaughter, and war. But at the same time, violence and war are inevitable factors in human society for keeping law and order. The battle of Kurukshetra, being the will of the Supreme, was an inevitable event, and to fight for the right cause is the duty of a Kshatriya. Why should he be afraid of or aggrieved at the death of his relatives, since he was discharging his proper duty? He did not deserve to break the law, thereby becoming subjected to the reactions of sinful acts, of which he was so afraid. By avoiding the discharge of his proper duty, he would not be able to stop the death of his relatives, and he would be degraded due to his selection of the wrong path of action. Maharaj, would you like to make comment? So in the purport, it's saying that the cycle of birth and death is inevitable, but we should not use that as an excuse to use violence. Although Prabhupada is saying that violence is necessary. It's not necessary. I mean, he says in his words, it's inevitable. It's inevitable for one human to fight against another human, especially in this material world where we're all conditioned with the three modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And when we're conditioned by these modes of nature, we think we're the body. And so we have this I, me, mine mentality. And that I, me, mine mentality generates envy or possessiveness, mainly possessiveness, because it's I, me, it's my land, it's my country is better than yours, or this is my car, don't touch it. This is my lawn, don't touch it. If you come on it, I'll shoot you. You know, these things exist, especially in this country where that possessiveness of land is very strong. And so this is a cause for war. And when an aggressor steps on another person's land and tries to take it, then that means war will happen. But in this case, in the Battle of Kurukshetra with Arjuna, Arjuna is being told by Krishna to do his duty and fight. Antavanta ime deha nityashukta sharirinaha anasino prameyasha yudyasva tasmad yudyasva bharata. So he's saying that the soul is immeasurable, indestructible, and eternal. And on that, Krishna is saying that Arjuna, you should fight because of these things. Like, do not worry that, you know, you think you're going to kill your family members. It's actually not going to happen. That's just on the bodily platform, thinking that he was going to kill his relatives when actually we know that the soul, Najayate Mirate Vakadachan, there's neither birth nor death for the soul. And so conversely, on this issue of birth and death and war, we can understand from the Bhagavad-gita a way to prevent war is by following the peace formula in chapter 5, text 29, Bhaktiramya Gitapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. By admitting that Krishna is the proprietor of all land, that he actually is controlling all the demigods, that he's the benefactor and well-wisher of everyone. If we admit that, that's his responsibility, that's Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead's responsibility, and this is his land, not our land, then we can realize it's not my land and it's not that other person's land, and we don't have to fight about whose land is whose or whose thing is whose thing. And use the objects of the senses as a way to serve himself rather than serve Krishna, then there's going to be this possessiveness, this I, me, and mine mentality. And of course, we saw that in the Battle of Kurukshetra with Duryodhana. He thought that this land was his and that none of it actually belonged to the Yadavas, the Pandava brothers. And that got him into trouble and it issued a war. And Krishna tried so many times to not have that happen. It's not like he just sat back, but it was ultimately the supreme will of Krishna that this battle happened and that this conversation, Bhagavad-gita, happened, so we can now understand what's what, that we're not our bodies, and we should do our duty, but also, in the end, Sarvadhamam pratyajamamekam sharanam vrajaham tvam sarvapapebhyo mokshishyami masuchaha, that we should abandon all varieties of religion, thinking that, I'm Christian, I'm Muslim, I'm Hindu, I'm this and I'm that, and just surrender unto Krishna. Krishna is saying that all of our sinful reactions from the past can be alleviated, and that we shouldn't fear what's going to happen to us in the future, because Krishna will take care of us. Like I said earlier, Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. He's the well-wisher of every living entity. So that includes his devotees, those who have surrendered unto him. Okay, so we'll go to the next text, text 28. All created beings are unmanifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when they are annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? Purport. Accepting that there are two classes of philosophers, one believing in the existence of soul and the other not believing in the existence of the soul, there's no cause for lamentation in either case. Non-believers in the existence of the soul are called atheists by followers of Vedic wisdom. Yet, even if, for argument's sake, we accept the atheist theory, there's still no cause for lamentation. Apart from the separate existence of the soul, the material elements remain unmanifested before creation. From this subtle state of unmanifestation comes manifestation. Just as from ether, air is generated, from air, fire is generated, from fire, water is generated, and from water, earth becomes manifested. From the earth, many varieties of manifestations take place. Take, for example, a big skyscraper manifested from the earth. When it is dismantled, the manifestation becomes again unmanifested and remains as atoms in the ultimate stage. The law of conservation of energy remains, but in course of time, things are manifested and unmanifested. That is the difference. Then what cause is there for lamentation either in the stage of manifestation or unmanifestation? Somehow or other, even at the end, all elements remain unmanifested, and only in the middle are they manifested, and this does not make any real material difference. And if we accept the Vedic conclusion as stated in the Bhagavad-gita, antavanta ime deha, that these material bodies are perishable in due course of time, nitya shokta sharirinaha, but the soul is eternal, then we must remember always that the soul is like a dress. That the body is like a dress. Therefore, why lament the changing of dress? The material body has no factual existence in relation to the eternal soul. It is something like a dream. In a dream, we may think of flying in the sky or sitting on a chariot as a king. But when we wake up, we can see that we are neither in the sky nor seated on the chariot. The Vedic wisdom encourages self-realization on the basis of the non-existence of the material body. Therefore, in either case, whether one believes in the existence of the soul or one does not believe in the existence of the soul, there is still no cause for the lamentation for the loss of the body. So, and there is no loss of energy. Energy is always conserved. It moves from one form to the other, from unmanifested to manifested. Like Srila Prabhupada says in this purport, we have a big skyscraper, and then they blow it up, and then there's no more skyscraper. And so if we have knowledge of that we are the soul, we can realize, oh, this body is temporary, but I know that I am eternal. The spirit soul is eternal. And so we have no reason to lament in that way. Conversely, if we're atheist or we don't think we have a soul and we're just a body, well, Prabhupada's saying again, there's no reason to be sad. There's no reason to be aggrieved that the body's going to go away, because it's actually not going to go away. It's just going to break down in different elements. It's going to be eaten by worms. It's going to be eaten by other animals and turned into stool. It's going to be burnt and turned into ashes. So there's many ways that body can degrade, but that material itself, that matter itself, is not lost. It's always conserved. So in the end, there's no reason to lament. Just like Srila Prabhupada saying that in a dream, we may think of flying in the sky or sitting on a chariot as a king, but when we wake up, we can see that we are neither in the sky nor seated on the chariot. So I don't know, I've had dreams where I've, sometimes thought, whoa, this is pretty real. But some dreams you're dreaming and you're like, well, this is not really, I know this is not real. This is a very temporary dream. Like, we find out that we have the most dreams just before we wake up. The body's like beginning to wake up, and that's the time we have the most dreams. Like during the middle of our sleep cycle, we don't have dreams, but in the very end we do. And sometimes they can present quite a different reality than we're actually experiencing in this life. But just like that temporary dream, I was going to say one other thing about dreams. Sometimes we may have dreams where we can even open our eyes and still see what we're dreaming, but also see the room that's in front of us. And so we're witnessing like a double reality, a double temporary things, temporary dreams. Because just like we're dreaming, we also have the dream right now that we're having. We're thinking we're the body. We're thinking, oh, I've got this house. This is my house. I've got this dog, or so on. Then if we really think it's mine and we think this body is mine, we're delusional, because it's all temporary, actually. Shri Shigurani Daya Ki Jai. So we can wake up from that dream, and with the knowledge of the Bhagavad-gita, that we're spirit souls, that just as we take off old garments, similarly we lose one body. And as we put on new garments, similarly we'll put on a new body. And just as we go from boyhood to youth to old age, we're going to leave our body. And one who understands this can remain peaceful, can remain calm, even at the time of death. Of course, we must practice that. And the method that we use as taught by Srila Prabhupada and all the great acharyas is by chanting the Maha Mantra. It said, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatir Anyata. That in this age of Kali, in this iron age of Kali, when there's so much quarrel and there's so much hypocrisy, there's so many distressful situations, heat, extreme cold. We could list off so many examples: tsunamis, floods, tornadoes, so many calamities. Those are just the ones that nature presents. What about the ones in our mind? Those are pretty hard to deal with too. So we can know those things we can deal with those things, but we can also know that they're temporary. And then we can really cultivate, because we know we're being so disturbed in this age of Kali, we understand that the actual solution to relieving ourselves from these calamities is chanting the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And if one gets in the habit of chanting this mantra, we can actually start to have realizations. It can go from being on the philosophical, theoretical platform to us really, really understanding and having a realization that we're not our bodies, we're a spirit soul. I remember one time in New Vrindavan, I was walking around and I was like, I'm not doing anything really. I'm just the witness. Like my legs are moving, I'm walking, but I'm not actually doing that. And some people might say, oh, you're crazy, man. You've lost your mind. But we can, by the knowledge of the Gita, we can understand, oh, this is the truth. Actually, we're just the observer. We're just seated, yantarurani maya. We're just seated on the machine made of this material energy. Krishna's within our heart with us. He knows everything that's going on. And he, along with the demigods, who we offer all respects to, are carrying out all of our actions for us. All we can really do is desire. And so chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, can really help us to understand this fact. So, well, we can go on chanting, and the more we chant, the more we become purified of our anartas, the knots that are in the heart that are keeping us from surrendering to Krishna more and more. And to really get rid of those anartas, we associate with devotees, because the devotees will help us to see, okay, that's what's bothering us. That's what's going on in the mind, like, revealing your mind in confidence to the devotees. And then you can really figure out how we can proceed and to get past this stage of having anartas and really get into loving Krishna. But of course, we have to become purified. We have to purify our actions. We really have to purify our desires. What do I really want in life? At the end of the day, what do I really want? Do I just want, a nice meal, or do I want to serve Krishna in the spiritual world? Do I just want a nice car, a nice house, a clean copings, or do I want entrance into the spiritual world, Yeah, and so if we just keep reading, we can really understand the ways in which to enter into the spiritual world by reading about executing devotional service from the Nectar of Devotion. And we learn from the 6 Goswamis, who are very expert at scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for all humanity, all human beings. And we follow them because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and constantly engaged in the service of Radha and Krishna. So we can trust them, we can trust Srila Prabhupada to help us get there. Okay, text 29. Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. Purport. So we have about 15 minutes left of class. Afterwards, we have a nice milk offering if everyone wants to stay and have some milk with us. So it's up to you. Just wanted to mention that. Hare Krishna. So purport. Since Gita Upanishad is largely based on the principles of the Upanishads, it is not surprising to also find this passage in the Katha Upanishad. Shravanayapi bahubir yono labhya shrinvantopi bahavo yana vidyuhu ashcharyo vyakta kushalosya labda ascharyo gyata kushala nushishyata. The fact that the atomic soul is within the body of a gigantic animal, in the body of a gigantic banyan tree, and also in the microbic germs, millions and billions of which occupy only an inch of space, is certainly very amazing. Men with a poor fund of knowledge and men who are not austere cannot understand the wonders of the individual atomic spark of spirit, even though it is explained by the greatest authority of knowledge, who imparted lessons even to Brahma, the first living being in the universe. Owing to a gross material conception of things, most men in this age cannot imagine how such a small particle can become both so great and so small. Some men look at the soul proper as wonderful either by constitution or by description. Illusioned by the material energy, people are so engrossed in subject matter for sense gratification that they have very little time to understand the question of self-understanding. Even though it is a fact that without this self-understanding, all activities result in ultimate defeat in the struggle for existence. Perhaps one has no idea that one must think of the soul and also make a solution of the material miseries. Some people who are inclined to hear about the soul may be attending lectures in good association, but sometimes, owing to ignorance, they're misguided by acceptance of the super soul and the atomic soul as one without distinction of magnitude. It is very difficult to find a man who perfectly understands the position of the soul, the super soul, the atomic soul, and their respective functions, relationships, and all other major and minor details. And it is still more difficult to find a man who has actually derived full benefit from knowledge of the soul and who is able to describe the position of the soul in different aspects. But if somehow or other one is able to understand the subject matter of the soul, then one's life is successful. The easiest process for understanding the subject matter of self, however, is to accept the statements of the Bhagavad-gita spoken by the greatest authority, Lord Krishna, without being deviated by other theories. But it also requires a great deal of penance and sacrifice, either in this life or in the previous ones. Before one is able to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna can, however, be known as such by the causeless mercy of the pure devotee and by no other way. So we find that the Bhagavad-gita, the Gita-upanishad, is linked with other texts, such as the Upanishads, Srimad Bhagavatam. So we have many texts in which to refer to get the whole truth. The truth that there's one spirit soul in every living entity. It's moving because of that, otherwise it wouldn't be moving. It's animating the body of a giant banyan tree and all the little tiny microscopic bacteria that are there. If they're moving, if they have some function of life, then they have a spirit soul inside them. That's them. But unfortunately, not everyone recognizes that. But we have this Gita, and we can distribute it widely so everybody can understand that we're more than just a body. And in that way, they can make their life sublime. They can become truly happy. They can become free of all the unlimited sufferings that happen in this world. If they just take to this process a little bit, they might be able to go back home, back to Godhead, and enjoy with Krishna, enjoy serving Krishna all the time. You know, there's not even time there. It's just like always serving Krishna. We can find that some people have misunderstanding that there's no difference between the creator and the created. They think that they're one, basically, that there's no difference in magnitude. But we understand from such verses as in the Gita, where Krishna is saying to Arjuna, you know, you might recall this one life, you might recall it, but you don't recall all your past lives. But I do. I recall all your past lives. I can recall all of them. And so in that example, and then we have, you know, some verses, Nityano, Nityas Nityanam, Chaitanas Chaitananam, Ekaho Bahunam Yovididati Kaman, where we're conscious of us, of what's going on in our heads, but we're not fully aware of what's happening in someone else's consciousness. But Krishna, he's actually aware of all of it. He's the supreme consciousness. He's the super soul residing in every living being. So he understands what's happening with them. So there is a difference between us as jivas and Krishna as Bhagavan. We can understand that he has all the six opulences in full, and we can only possess those in minute quality, minute amount. And lastly, we can see that it requires a great deal of penance and sacrifice for us to be able to accept Krishna as a supreme personality of Godhead fully. We can't think, well, we know that from our own experiences that we've had to change so many things in our lives in order to get deeper into spiritual life. And we're going to have to change so many more things in our life as the years move on. Something that I found interesting that I was hearing from Swayam Bhagavan Kesava Swami, it's actually a lecture that Jagannath Prabhu suggested that everyone listen to called Write and Be Happy. And he was discussing, he was sharing some of his journal entries because he keeps a daily journal, a diary, and he was sharing different realizations that he's had in different times in his devotional practice. And over that time, even those journal entries that he showed, you could see the evolution that he went through and that he's continuing to go through in his spiritual life. To see that was quite an inspiration, because if we fully devote ourselves to practicing Krishna consciousness and give up all these other theories, then we can have the similar realizations as great souls like S.P. Kesava Swami, and also the Acharyas and Srila Prabhupada, and His Holiness Dhanavir Goswami. We can have realizations like them, but first, we have to ask for the blessings and have the mercy of the spiritual master to be able to progress further in that and get their advice, get their blessings to continue on in our practice. Because we can't do it by ourselves. We have to understand from others, from other devotees who are more senior to us, how to delve deeper into our practice. It's not cheap, though. Sometimes we might find in the Gita that's maybe a little repetitive, but the thing is like, it's going to take us a lot of repetition to understand that we're not our bodies. We in the next verse, it's saying, he who dwells in the body is eternal and can never be slain. We might think we've got that information before, but of course, every verse in the Gita it's a special view on answering certain questions that might come up as stumbling blocks for our practice. So the Bhagavad-gita is actually perfect in answering all of those philosophical questions that come up. There's not one it doesn't answer. So if we really dig deep into it, we can see for ourselves the power of the Gita. And of course, we've probably already seen some of the power of the Gita, and that's why we're so happy to distribute it to others, because we know how it's changed our lives. Okay, I'll stop there. Thanks for tolerating me. Is there any questions, comments, chastisements? Yes, Magadari. Magadari Prabhu.
There was one text which said something about the unavoidable discharge of your duties. And I thought, we didn't read that text. So pardon me if it's off topic, but that really was intriguing to me, because I thought that was up to me. Like, or how does unavoidable? How are my duties unavoidable?
Mm.
That's what I'm wondering. I doesn't.
Yeah. I don't have so much realization on that, but I can share a few points I'm thinking of. So as we're in certain positions in our life in the moment. For example, I'm a man and I'm married. And so with that comes responsibilities and duties. And so I can't avoid those duties, just as Arjuna could not avoid the duty of fulfilling his role as a Kshatriya. He dropped his bow, but Krishna was telling him, pick that bow up and fight. That's your duty. And he gave him Arjuna had so many questions about it. So I've had a question about this too. I asked Maharaj this once. I was interested in knowing about Varnashram Dharma and Bhagavad Dharma. What's my duty? And ultimately, following the spiritual master tells us is our duty as we surrender to him, that's our duty. Of course, we don't stop using our intelligence. But of course, our intelligence is based in Guru, Sadhu, and Sastra. Maharaj, I don't know if you could enlighten us about this. (27) For one who has taken his birth, death is certain, and for one who is dead, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Read the word for word meaning? Yeah, okay. Jatasya, one who has taken his birth, he certainly. Dhruvaha, a fact. Mrityuhu, death. Dhruvam, it is also a fact. Janma, birth. Mritasya, of the dead. Cha, also. Tasmat, therefore. Apariharye, for that which is unavoidable. Arte, in the matter of. Na, do not. Twam, you. Shochitum, to lament. Arhasi, deserve.
Yeah. Can't avoid your. It's telling Arjuna that you can't. You have to do your duty. And don't lament, because Paritranaya sadhanam. No, Kriti. Yamanani gunai karmani sarvaja. Ankara Gurama. Padami 20. The bewildered spirit soul thinks he's the doer of activities, which are in actuality carried out by nature. So, unavoidable discharge of your duty. He's trying to explain to Arjuna why he can't avoid this duty, because he even said, if you go away and you don't fight this fight on religious principles, by your nature you'll be forced to act anyway. There's no use lamenting because everyone has to die, everyone has to take birth again. There's nothing to lament about. Soul's eternal. So perform your duty. He's trying to get Arjuna to understand, yes, perform his duty. Even if he has a philosophy is not correct, like he was saying, well, you don't believe it. You think the body always dies, or we always die and we're always born again. Still, you have no reason to lament. Because what? No one laments over some chemicals being moved from here to there. So do your duty. In other words, there's no way out. You can't avoid to do your duty. Unless you want to be unsuccessful, want to be labeled a coward. And we almost scorn you. And for one who's honored, dishonor is worse than death. Arjuna is the son of Indra, son of King Pandu. He's got the best training from Dronacharya. He went to the heavenly planets. All the demigods gave him their best weapon. I mean, what could be more embarrassing than to be called a coward after all that? And it's true. They wouldn't say, oh, he was being compassionate. They just say he's a coward. So that is the worst possible. So Krishna encourage you, do your duty. Don't try to avoid it. And don't lament about the so-called good and the bad. It's all good is good and bad. All in the mind.
Thank you, Maharaj. Do you want to ask your question, Jagannath? We'll finish with that.
So, what are some of the actions that we can do to apply the peace formula in our lives?
Listen to Krishna. Chant as much as possible. Following chanting at least 16 rounds a day. Follow our vows that we made when we took initiation. It's kind of the bare minimum, but associate with devotees. Give and receive gifts. Share prasadam and receive prasadam. And reveal your mind in confidence. And listen to others who are revealing their mind in confidence to you. Keeping that confidence, someone tells you something, in confidence, that means they have confidence in you that it's going to stay between you and the person. That's important. And also daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books, so we can continue to strive for the standard that he's setting. Is that okay, Prabhu? Okay, we'll end there tonight. Thanks everyone for joining, and have a good rest of your evening. Srimad Bhagavad-gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vanchakalpa Trivyacha Kripa Sindhivya Vacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.